5:20, the phone rang. And it startled me, as it would startle any of you if a phone rang that early in the morning. And I picked up the phone, and it was the Loyola University emergency room. And they said, "Mrs. Dano, this is the Loyola University emergency room. We have your husband, Santo. He's here and he's listed in critical condition. He's been involved in a motor vehicle accident." I didn't believe it.
It's the shock.
I actually had to call them back because I thought it was a prank phone call.
You went to the hospital, and your brother and sister told you the news, right?
Yeah. When we pulled up to the emergency room, my brother Frank and my sister Debbie were standing there. And they both grabbed my arms. And I said, "Is he okay?" And they said no. I thought maybe he was hurt really bad.
Of course.
I says, "Is he gonna be okay?" And they said no. And I says, "Is he dead?" And their eyes welled up with tears, and I knew it was true.
You know, but you don't know. It's that terrible shock.
All I remember from that point, Sally, was we were like under basically a canopy. And I just screamed no at the top of my lungs. And to this day, this is the sound that haunts me, is my own screams. They were like echoed. And I remember my legs giving out, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk.
Sherry, how did you feel when you found out the person who took your husband's life was intoxicated?
Well, at first I didn't know that alcohol or drugs were involved in this, and I felt sorry for him.
Mario received 4 years probation.
Mm-hmm.
Mario is in another part of the building right now, and he wanted to come to the show because he wanted to ask for forgiveness. Mario, come up here. You told us that the guilt that you feel for killing Sherry's husband is something that is absolutely unbearable. Tell me about it.
I have suffered greatly, Sherry, and I need you to feel what's in my heart.
Tell her.
I truly do, Sherry, because I love you. I really do.
And Presley has severe face damage. At 3 years of age, she's extremely self-conscious about it. Presley always, the little girl, keeps her eyes shut in fear of glass getting in them. And Kelly has lost her job because she can't walk. Kelly is now on public assistance and food stamps. And she has no health insurance to pay for the surgeries that they need. Michael laughed during the trial, never said he was sorry. Kelly is scared of Michael. Why would you come here?
I want him to know what I have to live through every day as a result of what he's done. He thought that he was so much of a man to get behind the wheel of a car high. And now my little girl hates me washing her hair because she said it's blood dripping. When we go to the doctor, she asked me if they would cut her clothes off. My little boy, I've got a 7-year-old, and he came up on the accident and saw them carrying his little sister like this. So he goes to counseling, and he knows that every minute I walk out the door that I might not come back.
Michael, Kelly, does she have any reason to be afraid of you?
Not at all.
Not at all. What are the gang signs? Are you a member of a gang? No. What were the signs that you were making during the trial to her father?
Middle finger.
Huh?
Middle finger?
Middle finger.
Yes.
Do you feel that you could say to her you were sorry?
For their injuries?
Well, for whatever.
Yeah, I'm sorry for y'all getting hurt, Kelly. Yeah. But am I sorry for driving?
What do you want to tell him?
I do think you should have had your baby girl in the car seat, though. I want to take my
Kelly, what can we do? He says you have nothing to be afraid of.
I still don't think that he understands. I mean, my whole life, my children's whole life is now affected. I've got fired from my job because of this. I have no insurance. My daughter needs plastic surgery. I have nothing to offer her. And I feel incompetent as a mother because of what you did to me. I cannot bend down and tie their shoes.
I'm sorry for your injuries. That's all I can tell you.
I'd like you to meet Manuel. Speaking of people whose life is completely shattered, 3 years ago his world came crashing to a halt. Literally crashing to a halt, I guess. It's an unfortunate use of words. When his wife, who is 8 months pregnant with their 2 young children, all of them, the 2 young children, his wife, were killed by a drunk driver. Now, unlike our other guest, Manuel hasn't had the chance to ever confront the driver who destroyed his life, because the driver was also killed in the accident. However, Manuel says that he absolutely cannot find the strength to put the nightmare behind him. Manuel, I understand that. You know, I think the hardest thing that anybody ever says to me is, are you over it? You know, like when your life changes forever, there's no over it, and it's as fresh as the day it happens, right?
Right. There is no getting over something like this. I never thought I'd be fortunate enough to be with somebody like her. And
you told our producers you were estranged from your family because of your relationship with your wife.
Yeah.
Why?
My parents didn't feel that it was appropriate to get involved in an interracial relationship. I mean, they were from the old country, so to speak, and their values are very different.
You had a child together?
Yeah, we had Michael. Michael, he was born the 15th of February of 1991. And we also had Ashley 2 years later, almost to the day. It was Valentine's Day in 1993. And
good marriage? Would you say it was a good?
Yeah. We thought everything was starting to click, you know, when you get your marriage together and you feel like everything's running on 8 cylinders, you know. And at first, yeah, it was rocky, hard financially, but everything was great. And Sharon got pregnant with our third in the summer of '94.
What happened?
Well, that Christmas, '94, we were told of a family reunion in Kentucky, and we spent about 6 hours there. And since it was a 2-day affair, we figured we could spend more time there Saturday. And left there, went back to the hotel, which is about 25 miles away, and in Lexington. I was very tired, okay, from the night before, and I wanted to get some sleep, okay. She wanted to go see an aunt of hers about 20 miles away, okay, who wasn't out there. And I go, why can't we just see her on Saturday, you know? But she was determined, you know, to see her.
Just to share with you, Sally, and the audience, this usually blows most people away. I was asleep in bed, and a drunk driver crashed his truck through my house while I was asleep in bed. And I woke up in my dining room window, and my wife was buried underneath the truck. She ended up suffocating. The drunk driver was traveling about 70 miles an hour. Had a blood alcohol.
Through the walls of a house?
Through the walls of our house. We were the first house in the development just south of Houston, Texas. I'm originally from New York and had met my wife, Ava, in college in Oklahoma, moved to Texas, was living there, and we were married 2 years in our first house, there for 2 months. And basically one Thursday night, I say goodnight to her, and I wake up an hour later. I'm in my dining room window, and I'm dealing with a full-size pickup truck in my house. She's buried underneath it. And I remember scrambling, trying to save her, get to her, and do whatever I could to lift the truck. To no avail, she ended up suffocating. The sheets and the mattress wrapped around her face and her body so tight, it took all the life out of her. She died there with me standing in the house, her buried under the truck. And I was physically banged up pretty good. If you can see in my face, there's a little scar here, right here in the right side of my face, my eye, my chin. I have all scarring from rubber from the truck tires burned and melted into my body.
How could somebody go through the wall of a house?
Well, when you're drunk and intoxicated, there's nothing that you can't do that's ridiculous, incredible, you know, whatever the words to use to describe it. And he crashed through my house, killing Ava and seriously injuring me. And so my life at that point was changed forever. But I was thankful for some of the things that went into my life prior to this and the support that I had around me that was incredibly instrumental in me overcoming my tragedy. I mean, I had friends flying in from all over the nation, and I tell people all the time, it's a humbling experience when your best friends in the world, they got to carry you into a bathroom, wash parts of your body you couldn't wash, and then to top it off, they're arguing over who's going to wash which part. But you realize who your true friends are because they stick closer than a brother and a sister, and they were there for me through the toughest time in my life, and the support group I got was so unbelievable. And I want to share to Sherry and to Kelly and to Manuel that just the fact that they are on this show sharing today, they have already taken an incredible step in the right direction.
You did something I think is very interesting. You sat down and wrote a book about your experience?
I wrote a story entitled Triumph Over Tragedy, and I want to share this because I know this is so fresh and new to these beautiful people sitting here. What I went through, just like what they're going through, the best way to describe it, it's a hell on earth.
Hell.
But I will say this.
Lady and has a very nice career ahead of her. And one of the things we learned in Tiffany doing this show was what, Tiffany?
And my father, too, was killed by a drunk driver.
So we didn't know that when we assigned the show to Tiffany. And we would not have assigned it to her had we known that. Do you understand how they feel? What happened?
Oh, it was a long time ago. I was, can't believe I'm crying.
Can you get Tiffany a Kleenex, please? Would you rather me not ask you?
It's okay. It's
in Harris County, Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas, a deputy. A few months ago, she was at work as a Houston police officer, and she heard about a fatal car crash over her dispatch radio. And she didn't know that the person who was killed in that accident was her 20-year-old daughter, Jennifer. Has that ever happened before, where a police person?
I don't know of any.
I don't either. Tell me about that day and what you heard.
I work the midnight shift, and I usually start getting ready to go to work around 8 or so. And I kissed her and told her that I loved her and that I would see her tomorrow. And she told me what she was going to do. So I went to work, and
you heard this
on the radio.
What did you think?
Well, when you work as a police officer, you hear these on the radio a lot, and you get dispatched to them a lot. And sometimes we become a little callous to that because we have to.
Sure, or you couldn't survive.
So after I heard this go out, I then heard another police agency get on our radio and ask for one of our supervisors to go to their scene. And I thought that was kind of strange because each
they don't
agency,
have a supervisor.
well, each agency works their own accidents, and they wouldn't need us there. They had their own. And then after that, I had a supervisor get on the back channel and tell me to meet him at the station.
As the State Director of Victim Services for the Alliance Against Intoxicated Motorists, It's about as long a title as we've ever had. Pat, what do you do with that long title?
Well, basically I work with victims of drunk driving crashes. I do grief counseling and advocacy and fundraising. I'm just there for the victims. Drunk driving, Sally, is the most preventable death known to mankind. It's also the most violent. When someone kills someone drunk driving, as Sherry described her husband swollen, I hear bones protruding from the body, blood coming from every orifice, brain matter. It's never a pretty death. And it's so preventable, 100%, if people didn't drive drunk. And I ask you, the audience, have you ever put yourself in harm's way? Have you ever once, even once, either driven a car or gotten into the car with someone who is intoxicated?